Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Timcast IRL. I am so excited to be here with a number of several guests. Some of you have been asking about guest host Tim Pool and when he's going to be back. He likes to hang out here with us. Unfortunately, Tim is a sick man. Tim is sick. And he's getting the help that he needs right now. And so we're all just going to wish him well and hope that he gets better soon. In all seriousness, he should probably be back in a few days. But technically, when I said he's a sick man, there was nothing factually incorrect about that. That is literally true, right? I mean, I have a lawyer here who can confirm that nothing I said was incorrect.
At this time, we have no further elucidations to add to your statement.
Thank you very much.
We do wish to reserve our right to make any additional amendments as might be required.
Yeah, well, it's interesting how my first time ever hosting the show, Tim was like, we need to send a lawyer in here just to fact check him and make sure he stays on point all night. We have a number of stories tonight. The OceanGate story, the tragic loss of the OceanGate CEO and his son on the Titan. The Minnesota AG warns Target about their obligations to the LGBTQ community. A Pentagon accounting error to the tune of $6.2 billion. An IRS whistleblower talking about Hunter Biden and his investigation, as well as an AI saying that conservative women are happier and more attractive. Interestingly enough, we have all of the juicy stories just in time for Tim to be sick and for me to take over. But let me tell you something, because I still care so much about my friend who's allowed for me to take the wheel tonight, I'm going to ask all of you to go over to castbrew.com. Check this out, all right? For the cost of one bag of coffee, you can support my sick friend, Tim. And we will send you a bag of coffee in Thanksgiving. Now, of course, I won't make any promises. Again, we have a lawyer here. You will go there. You will purchase the coffee. I can't tell you if it's going to have anything to do with Tim's recovery, but I think he'd feel a little bit better, at least with respect to his morale, if you guys purchased some Cast Brew coffee. And also, it's going to make me look good. He's going to say, look, you know, Timcast hosted and we moved more product than usual. What I'm telling you is I need this. I need this. So please, Cast Brew coffee or just castbrew.com. Get yourself some coffee. And while you're at it, I want you to head over to timcast.com and become a member. You dirty dogs. All right. You're sitting here. You're watching this content. Tim has built this massive platform so he could give you the news. We're very grateful to him. And if you are able to, we would massively appreciate it if you became a member, supported what he's doing, supported his mission, and help him grow out what he's trying to do here, which I think is a good thing, and I hope you all agree. You'll also get access to the After Hours show, which is going to be pretty spicy. So now that I have sufficiently introduced the show, we have with us today the man who needs no introduction. What's your name again?
I am Tim Pool.
Well, hold on a second. We can't do this. You're the legal expert here. Are you able to impersonate him?
Why don't you sue me?
Oh boy.
Bring it on.
I'm not the one who's going to do that. I'm saying that like Tim might have a case against you at this point.
No, actually, it would be the best thing I could do for Tim to actually speak in his voice in a way guaranteed to avoid any legal entanglements whatsoever.
Yeah, it's much appreciated. That's why people hire you guys.
Issues related to contagion and where he has been recently before this illness.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
I'm Ron Coleman.
Yes.
Ron Coleman, the lawyer on Twitter. I mean, there are other lawyers on Twitter, but I'm the fun one.
He's not the only one.
I'm the fun one, and I am so happy to be here. And everybody gave me little notes, little messages for Tim. And I feel kind of like a schmuck, frankly.
Why is that?
Because Tim's not here.
Yeah. Oh, they give you messages to pass along. Not like get well soon stuff.
No one gives a shit. Please.
Oh, well, maybe they're schmucks. I want my friend to get better. Castbrew.com. Get some coffee.
We all do. We all do.
You know what? That's enough out of you. That's enough.
Yeah. Listen, I could go.
We have Hannah. No, we would like to continue this conversation. Okay. But Hannah Claire, she's really going to be the one digging into you tonight. She is a very solid reporter at Timcast.com who has a few things to say about tonight's stories.
She has been gunning for bear since the second I walked in. It has been a very, frankly, aggressive and pugnacious
Yep, that's me, Hannah Claire, aggressive Brimlow. That's what they call me. As you can tell, I think this will be a pretty contentious episode, and I'm happy to be here. My favorite part of this so far has been Ron saying, "Yeah, Seamus, sue me and see what those cartoons will do."
Oh my goodness!
I think that we're in for a show. Obviously, we hope Tim gets better soon, and if not, apparently there's a hostile takeover happening. I'm not sure who's going to win.
Ian Crossland.
Hi, Seamus.
Good to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Who's
Yeah.
going to win tonight? Everybody's going to win.
Hi, I'm here, guys. Hopefully we'll keep this show on the rails. I think we're doing a pretty good job so far.
And the good thing is that without Tim here after several nights in a row, no one's going to know if we don't.
Exactly. He's not going to watch. He's never going to see this.
No, I mean no one. I saw last night's numbers.
Oh, they wrote, "We now believe that our CEO, Stockton Rush, Shazda Dawood, and his son, Suleiman Dawood, Hamish Hardy, and Paul Hardy Nargalet have sadly been lost." So they go on to say that these men were explorers who had a spirit of adventure. This is, of course, a very sad story, but I want to open it up to you guys. What do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about the fact that the Navy says that they heard or detected that there was a hull implosion several days ago and didn't say anything until now?
Hull implosion.
Yes.
Because when I first heard you, I thought you said whole implosion.
No.
And that
Hull,
would have been,
yeah. I'm not sure what that would even mean.
No, because the hull is what kind of hull?
Complete implosion.
Hull, like a complete, the hull cracked, and they found debris, I think about a third of a mile from the wreckage of the Titanic. So,
the Wall Street Journal is reporting that this U.S. Navy technology that's used to find enemy submarines picked up on what they now believe was this implosion around the area where debris was now found.
And doesn't that answer the big question to at least one possible non-conspiratorial answer to the big question everyone's asking? Now believe. Now we found the debris. Now we know what that weird noise was.
That's true.
Well, this is something we were talking about a little bit before the show, but
And they found the wreckage. Like, show me the evidence, man. I don't buy it. I don't buy this. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why this was mainstream
It's like you
news.
don't believe the government.
Yeah,
or something.
how weird
I don't
that there's-
understand this. What is this?
there's
What is
like
this that I've been invited to?
Crazy corruption scandals about the president's son, but all of a sudden this new piece of pop news takes over and they're trying to like shove it down my throat for 5 days. And they'd signed a waiver, and on the front page it was like, you waive just in case you die. And it said death 3 times on the front page. Could be hyperbolic, but they were pretty much like.
So my friend, Legal Mindset, Andrew Esquire, a YouTuber, did a very good video that I think he posted, 12 hours ago today, addressing potential legal issues that are raised by this tragedy. And going to your point again, because of, I think, what is generally a government hostility towards any kind of independence, and certainly big independence like this, he seemed to suggest that this is going to provide an impetus for more regulation. But I'm surprised that he said that, because the first thing he said in his video, and I think the video is great, is that there's a jurisdictional issue here. This is international waters, and part of the reason there is so little regulation is precisely because of the lack of a regulating and enforcing authority. So the fact that many countries, everyone knows that in the world of sailing, the nautical world is, if you've had any familiarity at all with cruise lines, they're notoriously unregulated. Was that you can sign a waiver, you can waive all kinds of things, but you can't. There's a level of negligence, of gross negligence, that you cannot waive away. By virtue of signing a waiver that doesn't give you permission, okay, now I can come into your treehouse. Great, welcome aboard, Ron. I'm going to shoot you in the head. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So there will be lawyers looking very hard at this.
Well, speaking of lawyers, the Minnesota Attorney General, turns out, no, the obligation is to the LGBTQ community here. And what they were saying, of course, in the letter was that they understand that there was a legitimate threat to the safety of consumers at Target. No, it was the consumers who said they were no longer interested in what Target was pushing here. That's the problem. What they're upset about is the fact that people were willing to stand up to this massive corporation and say, actually, we're not interested in having you force this nonsense onto us and our families. And of course, they call that a threat to their safety. And then they try to turn around and say this is a threat to the safety of our customers. This is a very textbook left-wing tactic to just project. What they are trying to do is have a predatory relationship with their customers where they force any idea or perverse set of lifestyle choices onto those customers and they do nothing about it. So they're the ones who are actually a threat to the safety of their customers. They're the ones trying to victimize them in a very real sense. When those customers turn around and leave, they say, well, the customers are actually being victimized by virtue of the fact that they're no longer shopping in our locations, because the only explanation for this is big, bad right-wing terrorists or whatever other boogeyman they want to invent to avoid accountability here.
Yeah. I wonder, too, that it's just so arrogant of these attorney generals to not acknowledge that by telling Target, you have to keep this merchandise on your shelves for everyone to then take pictures of and share how it's not selling. I mean, I think one of the best things Alex Stein has ever done is go to Target and try on their tuck-friendly swimsuit, right? Like, they are...
I think Alex also feels that that's one of the best things he's ever done, too.
Yeah, I think
Still
so.
burned in my mind, actually.
Yeah, you'll never forget it.
His feed has really changed since that experience.
But I just mean, when I'll draw back to Bud Light. What did we see for the weeks afterwards? Pictures of these stacks of Bud Lights not moving off shelves. And we saw more cases of Bud Light with these crazy coupons saying, basically, please, we'll pay you to take this. I can see on a number of levels why as soon as this happened, Target felt like it needed to pull the merchandise and to say...
But was there really no aspect of bullying? And is this a complete fantasy? Is it the way you described it?
It's a total fantasy. No, it's nonsense. Their idea of bullying is you didn't comply with what I told you to do. You didn't obey me. That's what bullying means to a leftist.
Were there even? I mean, for example, the school board, the bullying by parents of school boards.
The parents bullying the teachers.
So, playing devil's advocate, which I am often paid to do.
You're a lawyer, yeah, I get it.
If parents become unruly or they refuse to respect. Everyone gets 2 minutes to speak and you went over, or you're Matt Walsh and you're too effective and compelling, But there's a sort of an immediacy and there's a sort of a menace. This is pure democracy in action. But is there anything even comparable to that? Were there any pickets anywhere? In front of Target stores?
Yeah,
I bet there were.
I think people, it's possible, but my understanding is what they're really concerned about is just the fact that people have stopped shopping there and their stock prices plummeted. I don't know if they would be as concerned about protests. I think a lot of what's happened with Target and a lot of what has happened with Bud Light isn't that there have been, right-wing organizations getting protesters together. It's just that ordinary people have said, we don't want this anymore and we're not going to purchase your product.
Well, not just that. We're not going to go to your stores. Whenever you go to a Target, what do you see? People there dragging their kids along because these are people most of them are caregivers, and also people don't work anymore. So everyone's there with their kids. And all of a sudden, kids are looking at these displays and these bizarrely configured, articles of clothing and asking very awkward questions. And what they want to have happen is for the normal to become, your children should be exposed to this. Your children should ask these questions. And guess what? We'll even tell you how you should answer them.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And fortunately, consumers still have the power to boycott these organizations, and they would love to see that stop. Unfortunately, there are organizations that we don't have the power to boycott, segueing into our next story about the United. I can't imagine a strategy more foolish for determining how your national defense or even just expenditure is handled by putting it in the hands of people who pay absolutely no price for horrific mismanagement of those resources.
Well, that's the theme of our era, is no accountability. And certainly no one in the federal government is ever held accountable for things that they're quite rationally expected to be accountable for. I was saying before the show, as we were talking about this, that I'm surprised the Pentagon even bothered coming up with this story.
Yeah.
Since when do they even care? Since when do they need an excuse? Usually they just say, we just decided to send some more.
Well, they've failed their last 5 consecutive audits. I mean,
and yet
Pentagon,
they're still in business.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine? Let me ask you this. As a legal expert, are you aware of any large corporations that have failed 5 consecutive audits and just been fine, business as usual?
Well, failing an audit is a funny concept. When audits...
There's that lawyer talk.
When audits, when questions are raised by audits, boards of directors have responsibilities to follow up on those. And they have a fiduciary obligation to shareholders to make sure that problems are addressed. So you're asking the right question. The problem with government is that it is not only a word for people doing stuff together.
Yeah, that's right. That's what government means. It's just when we get together. And
it's not even just a word for...
Remember when we all got together and accidentally gave Ukraine an extra $6.2 billion? When we all just got together and did that? That's what government is.
What I'm kind of wondering here is, one of the things I've kind of heard recently was that a lot of the stuff that was sent to Ukraine, it was actually the military was kind of happy to get rid of it. A lot of it was outdated stuff, and it gives them an excuse to replace those things with new and better stuff. And maybe
it's like a clearance sale, but for military.
Exactly.
Right.
Got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Got to get rid of it by shooting it at, we're not shooting it. Of course, we're not shooting it. These people are shooting it to salvage their independence and their pride. I did not mean pride.
This story,
different pride.
But you did say it. This story reminds me, I don't know if it's a meme or whatever, I saw on Twitter of it comes up every tax season where it's like, the government, you owe me money, me. Okay, how much? We can't tell you.
That's right.
Is it this much? No, to jail.
Exactly.
This doesn't make any sense to me because the government gets to be like,
let's stick a
we
pin
misplaced $6 billion.
Stick a pin in that conversation, because I think we will be coming back to it tonight again also.
Done that. To me, this means they knew that they were going to get caught for some reason. They only admitted it and got out in front of the story. The government does not do things afterwards.
Well, like you said, Shane, what would have happened?
Exactly.
Oh no, we failed.
You caught me. Let me see your wallet, sir. Every single time. Like I said, they never pay any price.
On being
single.
What are you going to do about it?
That's exactly what I was about to say. Sometimes I wonder if there's a little bit of rubbing people's faces in these kinds of situations. I almost wonder, and I know it's a bit conspiratorial, but if they come out and they admit these things because they just want to confirm that you're not going to do anything about it. There's not really going to be any backlash.
Well, that's the FBI. That's the FBI. Yeah, that whole secret court thing where you're supposed to trust us, and we
issues warrants and makes all kinds.
We absolutely blew that. I don't know. We were drinking. I don't know what it was. It was someone made a dare. But we took a lot of stuff, a lot of secret confidential stuff that we shouldn't have taken, but whatever, right?
Well, the FBI has admitted to far more horrific stuff than that too. I mean, FBI and CIA, when you just look at the things that they've leaked, you go, I'm glad that they were transparent about this, but not to get too sidetracked, hearing about things like, MK Ultra or Project Northwoods, any of these things that were going on behind the scenes that if the American people had known about them at the time, they might have actually attempted some kind of coup. And then you go, well, they're telling us now, and they're also telling us that they would never do anything so horrible again. So I guess everyone's just kind of roll over and obey the regime.
I've been thinking about secret police lately. It's secret police.
They've been thinking about it.
Well, they are. The FBI, the CIA, they're secret police. We've had them for 100 years. Secret police are okay if they're not attacking themselves, if they're not attacking their own government. But when it starts to invade and attack, it's like an immune response. It's like, what do you call what's like HIV? It's attacks the immune system, immunodeficiency. So this is like an immunodeficiency when the secret police turn on itself. So the fact that it's going after a Republican candidate for president, for instance, or whatever, tapping people's phones in the United States, and the Nazis had a secret police that went after itself. They started going after their own people. So I'm okay with allowing a CIA to exist spiritually, even having a secret police force. I understand there is massive value to that, but to protect our species and our environment, but man, when it goes on itself, I don't know how to make it not go on itself either. If it starts, how do you turn it around without having it gutted?
When you mean go in on itself, what exactly are you saying?
If it starts to arrest other people within the political system of the country that it's supposed to operate.
Well, this actually was most prevalent in the NKVD in the 1930s, and the astonishing thing that Stalin, among the many astonishing things that Stalin achieved, was he gutted the leadership of the NKVD.
What's the NKVD?
That was the predecessor of the KGB. Same exact thing. I mean, he would sometimes split them into different ministries, internal, external. But the bottom line is, Soviet secret police were turned inside out. And it had been understood pretty much, since Lenin and through the early purges of Stalin, that to be what they call the Chekist was to be a uniquely privileged person. You were the elite. And yes, from time to time, the number one guy would get his head chopped off. But being a dutiful Chekist was still a very secure. And then all of a sudden, those heads, and it was an extraordinary implementation of power on Stalin's part to be able to do that and not result in a kind of rebellion there, because there were so many different internal monitoring systems of the internal monitoring systems that you never knew which circuit you were pulling on, which wire you were pulling on. So it can be done, and the more power, and in fact, the more powerful and invasive your security state is, the more likely that is to happen.
That is, that a strongman can start picking it apart without it realizing that it's being destroyed or even capable at stopping itself from being.
Although I'm not sure that the CIA as such, or the NSA, or the FBI have really suffered any harm themselves from themselves. American security has, and American citizens have. Church Committee, which none of you will remember, but you've heard of, which investigated the MK Ultra stuff and the the domestic spying, was supposed to resolve that. And what they didn't count on was that Congress would completely drop the ball on its oversight. And also, what the post 9/11 security, and secrecy reforms, so to speak, the legislative permit that was given to the security state to essentially operate with a degree of comprehension that would have been inconceivable in the 70s when the church hearings took place, and which are incredibly invasive, and there's no accountability.
Yeah. Do you think that we need these agencies in today's America? Like, should we terminate the FBI?
To your point, I can't imagine competing in the global world as opposed to the flat one, which
I was going to say we don't talk about that till the after show.
The spherical world.
You saw what happened. All right, don't make it happen again.
I don't see how you could not have it, but on the other hand, I don't see how they must be accountable. And time to say the cliche: who watches the watchers?
Well, exactly.
And it is it's a ratcheting effect. Very hard to imagine how you loosen that. And by the way, we do have serious rivals on the world stage, as well as serious problems with crime and with and with cybersecurity, both internally and externally, and corporate espionage. You do need sophisticated help. And government is very well positioned to do that. And I've never been the biggest libertarian in the world. I bet if Tim were here, he could make an argument, along the lines of privatizing those kinds of services. If you're a corporation and you have information that needs to be protected, or if you're a person that needs to be protected, move out to Maryland along the border of West Virginia, and that's everyone can do that. But be that as it may, I think there's a very strong consensus. And by the way, this is another point: the vast majority of Americans don't know that there's a problem.
Yeah. Well, speaking of it, you were kind of mentioning these sophisticated tools of analysis. Well, there are some stories that we can get to the bottom of without very sophisticated tools, or even minds which are very analytical.
I think we're watching a very, very special segue happen.
Oh, we're watching a very special segue.
And beautiful.
Just you wait, guys. I almost stuck the landing, and then you had to make fun of me.
At the end of the show, please rate his best segues and his worst segues.
We're gonna make a timestamp exactly after the show. We're gonna do a compilation of my best and worst segues. Well, I'll just drop the name of the story. I'll just drop the title of the article here in the story we're going to talk about. U.S.-funded scientists were among 3 Chinese researchers who fell ill amid the early COVID COVID-19 outbreak.
It's notable that it's coming from the Wall Street Journal, right? This isn't a fringe group that's reporting this.
Exactly what I was thinking is that, okay, is this going to be another Fox head? Oh.
No, it's not
Wall
Fox.
Street Journal.
It's not Newsmax. It's no one who.
Also, it's
So
not-
frankly,
it's
I
not
don't believe it. It's Wall Street Journal.
But it's not the Wall Street Journal editorial page either.
Yeah.
It's the
They are presenting
news
it as
department.
fact. They feel as though they have the evidence to back this up. And I can't speak specifically to the Wall Street Journal, but most of these major mainstream outlets, we can kind of guess what their track record on this theory was, where they cited. The fact that this is being reported, I mean, we are 3 years out. A lot of people's attitudes towards the pandemic have really shifted. But it's notable that
I'm very pro.
you're for it.
Yeah, I think
it was a good time.
It was
Changed your mind?
Looking
incredible
back,
You have to catch
growth
up.
opportunity. Yeah.
You got to work out a lot. You're a bodybuilder now, right?
That
what I've heard.
actually might be what they
Just
try
Google
to. They might try to convince the American people to be in favor of it, just so that they don't have to take accountability. Like, maybe this was a good. Maybe we needed this.
We
time
all get to
ourselves.
spend more time at home.
I don't think
Ron
Fauci had
became
enough
a
medals.
bodybuilder. No, but I think that's the thing you should take away. Yes, like you're saying, maybe we all already knew this information. Maybe this is drawing forth a conclusion that a lot of us had already assumed.
But the reason the answer to your question is no is that read that last sentence. The identity and role of the researchers is one piece of intelligence that has been cited by proponents of the judgment that that's actually not very good writing. Proponents of the judgment that the pandemic originated with a lab leak, and that is not an award-winning sentence, but
No.
it's still, they don't actually take the position that this tends to prove, or this proves that it was always bullshit, that it was anything other than a lab leak.
The nature of their illness hasn't been conclusively proven.
Yeah.
So it's just a bunch of facts we're going to line up, but we can't say what happened.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, there's one extremely obvious
Now,
explanation
Tim would
here.
not appreciate if we got him demonetized.
No. So this is one of those things you are able to discuss, but we probably shouldn't push out further into other questions of the medical science that YouTube would.
And we're not questioning
frankly-
science. We're questioning the Wall Street.
I mean, I think I've pretty much made my point on this, that the explanation here from the get-go was unbelievably obvious. We've had a number of different people in media and in the channels of the United States government and actual official institutions that people look to as authorities throughout this entire pandemic come out and say that they were not either being honest with us from the beginning, but maybe a better way of putting it is saying they weren't being truthful, because that doesn't necessarily demand that we believe that they were being intentionally dishonest, just that what they were saying clearly wasn't true. So there are certain, see, I got the lawyer appreciates
I'll
me
tell you why,
saying that.
because you just hit on something that I actually had wanted to say before, but I'd forgotten, which was misinformation.
Information they want you to miss.
Oh, I like that.
Thank you.
Misinformation is a made-up word. There's disinformation. Disinformation is an affirmative attempt to lie to you about reality so that you, for policy reasons, for political reasons, okay. Misinformed. I was misinformed. They told me the show started at 7. It starts at 8. Someone made a mistake, or even someone did it on purpose. I was misinformed. There was never such a thing as misinformation. I mean, there might have been, the formative might have existed theoretically, but misinformation is something that was created in the social media era as a term to describe what might not be true, what might not be truth, but to make it sound like those who repeat it are engaged in disinformation because it rhymes with and it alludes to disinformation. But accusing someone of disinformation is almost saying that they're competent state actors or something. You don't want to say that. You want to say rather that they're
interesting.
So that's what a lot of what we're talking about. That's the theme. And you mentioned this. You sort of mentioned it earlier. The idea is to get across an official narrative and to marginalize anyone who departs from it as being engaged in misinformation, not in misinforming people. Because when you misinform people, it's like I thought the movie started at 9.
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly.
People make mistakes. No, it's because you're bad.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. It's a very good way of looking at it.
Thank you.
I think what everyone has to remember here is the media, social media platforms, and basically everyone in government, including people in government who are actually colluding with social media companies to have them censor people from those platforms, were claiming that their interest was in protecting the American people. Now, if it's true that you are genuinely just a seeker of truth who wants to use the best information available to protect people, then when your track record ends up revealing that you have been consistently incorrect about important details, which you punished people for speaking truth on, you'd imagine some kind of humility would be demonstrated, and you would loosen your grip over the control of informational flow, or you would loosen your restrictions. And on some things they have. However, they still act with a degree of authority and certainty, which is not only unearned, but which has been thoroughly dismissed and refuted by the facts. I would say has been entirely undermined by their own track record. Yeah, man. So
I don't. It's just like a psychology hour. If I have kids, what are they going to be 20 years old and shipped off to the military to fight some war or like a defensive nuclear war, like against robots? What?
Well, if you decide not to push back, I mean, that's part of self-determination, right? Like you have the free will to be actively present in the life you have right now and to do what you can to make the world a place that you would want to pass down to your children. I think you have to resist giving up. Yeah,
man, because you can't lose hope. The establishment actually thrives off of you not having hope. When the people they're trying to subjugate don't see a path forward, that's when they win. And
that's part of the attack on religion.
Yep. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. The attack on religion and the attack on the family as well. You mentioned something about children. Again, I don't have any kids, but from every single parent I've ever spoken to, it sounds to me like choosing to have children is a tremendous act of hope. You're hoping that there will be a better future. You're being optimistic and saying, I'm going to bring life into this world because I think it's going to be a good thing that I did it.
You mentioned to us before the show that you renewed your faith in your early 20s. Was this idea of hope and having a path forward something that did that for you?
That's a good question. I mean, really, growing up in what's considered to be a secular Jewish environment, although it was very strongly ethnic because of the immigrant component of my parents and grandparents, and then finding myself as someone whose own parents had not gone to college, and all of a sudden I was at Princeton. So I was on the very precipice of
in an elite school.
An elite school, and sort of supposedly the entree into the elite of the world, which is not what I learned much, much later, was that these schools mostly perpetuate networks. They're not there to invite you into their network, although if you want to de-self yourself enough to really be a member of the club, you
de-self
could.
Yourself.
But that was precisely, that's actually a Jane Coleman. That is my wife's phrase, not that she ever uses it.
You know what Woodrow Wilson said? The purpose of academia is to make a man as little like his father as possible.
Yes, and that's why his name has been stripped off every building in Princeton. Ironically,
I think that's the one thing he said they'd probably love.
Right, but not
exactly. They've moved away from their ideological father.
But the answer to the question is yes. I mean, looking at this strong identity that I had, and then looking at what really assimilating really meant, and the fact that I knew that I had an inherent belief in God and in the validity of the Jewish tradition as being something that was valid and meaningful to me. What I did was I went to Israel to study and became much more knowledgeable about my heritage, and actually took a couple of years between graduating law school and starting my career, my what would eventually become legendary legal career.
Did religion bring some humility to you?
Imagine what it was like before. Can you just imagine?
I don't think I can.
No, actually, there's not all that's much more humbling than being 25 years old and have a degree from Princeton and from law school in Northwestern.
Yeah, that sounds really humbling, man.
And no. And then going to a beginner's yeshiva in Israel and learning basically the ABCs.
Yeah.
Stuff that my kids learned when they were 7 and 8.
Yeah.
So that was, but the humbling effect did pass, yes.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, and I'll mention this, and I think we could have a really fascinating discussion about this and about religion and faith on the after show. But this is one thing a lot of people are deprived of, is a religious education, because parents say, I want to let my kids choose when they're older. Your kid's going to make a choice when they're older, regardless. Give them an inheritance give them a faith, teach them something so that if they do choose it, they don't have to start from square one like they're like a little kid learning it all for the first time.
And my friend from Princeton days, Yoram Hazony, writes in his books about national conservatism and about conservatism. People are under a misapprehension. They think, well, why should my child be exposed to our particular religion? Sure, he has to have religious education, but what makes our family's tradition any more valid? Stop asking a stupid question, okay? It's your family's tradition. It's what made you who you are. Do you like your parents? Do you like your grandparents? If you don't, it's probably because of Freud. Throw that stupid-ass tradition out the window.
Based. All right, yeah, we agree on that. We definitely agree on throwing Freud out.
We can save more of this.
Yeah, and I think we'll save more of it. Well, one thing I would say to people, too, is like when you start learning about like Christianity and Catholicism and decide to become Catholic, then don't feel free to not do the same thing your ancestors did.
Show.
I just knew the blame the Jews card would be played.
We'll talk about it on. But speaking of humility, we've got a story about Hunter Biden here, the most humble member of, I guess we could say, our royal class in the United States at this point, especially when you look at the way that they're treated. I mean, no, effectively, he's royalty. People, it's one of the number one critiques of monarchy, and it's one of the number one reasons people supported democracy. What happens if you're in a monarchy and the king just has an absolutely horrible family? You end up being ruled by complete degenerates. Well,
get Robin Hood.
That's not a what if, all right? I mean, that's literally what is happening to us right now in a democracy.
Plenty of depravity in the history of the Roman Empire, right?
Amen.
I mean, these guys, they filled up the history books with some pretty sleazy moves. But we have our own royal family.
But we wouldn't want them to get all the glory. We would also want to destroy the reputation of American people.
Well, exactly. So we have elites in this country. This is something Ian and I talked about quite a while ago. And what I said is the way I define elite is someone who will not pay any consequence for their actions. That's basically how an elite is defined in a system which is as corrupt as ours is. And when you're looking at somebody like Hunter Biden and our next story, which is the fact that IRS whistleblowers actually came out, and not just one, but two of them, and alleged that there was political interference in the Hunter Biden investigation.
Talk about information I didn't need
exactly.
confirmed, although...
This is exactly what I was saying earlier with the lab leak hypothesis, right? There's just story after story after story of the conspiracy theorists being proven right. Information that we were already well aware of. I appreciate these guys coming forward. I agree that this stuff has to come out, and it's good that they're talking about it. But the fact is, nobody thought this was going to be impartial or unbiased. Under the Obama administration, the IRS was specifically targeting conservative groups. This has been a biased organization for a very long time. And I'm asking you, as a lawyer, if I, a nice guy like me, failed to pay the government $1 million that I owed it, do you think I would get 2 misdemeanor charges? I'd be able to plead down to that?
I think you would get 2 misdemeanor charges on every square inch of your body. And the felony charges would be lodged in other parts of your body. That would be less visible.
Yeah, no, okay, that's a colorful way of describing it. Now, let me ask, what if you were my lawyer?
Then you wouldn't even get the 2.
All right, perfect. Yeah, well, maybe that was Hunter's mistake. He didn't hire you.
You would get a Congressional Medal of Honor.
I mean, I think it's worth noting that he admitted...
I'm surprised Hunter didn't, to be honest.
I mean, it's coming. He hasn't gotten it yet.
There's no such thing as a law firm anymore that works for both Democrats and Republicans. That's over. So we are. I don't know if you might have picked up on this Harmeet Dillon thing, but we are a Republican law firm.
Is there really none? There's no impartial ones?
All practical purposes. That's.
Jeez.
I mean, in the upper echelons. I mean, it might be in local politics that it's still more, unpolitical. But
is that just since Trump got in?
Trump was the turning point. Yeah. I would say so.
And I think there is no way voters can look at the Bidens and say they are of the people. They are not.
By the way, I mentioned this earlier, but do you remember when he claimed that people called him middle class Joe? They didn't mean it as a compliment, man. No one ever called you that ever. First of all, no one in American politics is going, oh, look at the person the middle class can relate to. Let's laugh at them. That's not how this country works, okay? People who hate the middle class still pretend to love it while denigrating it, stripping all of its wealth away, and insulting its values. No one ever called Joe Biden middle class Joe. But you were going to make a point, and I so rudely interrupted.
No, I don't think so. I think I might have. I do have this ability to make a face that looks like I'm about to make a point. But if I was, I don't remember what it was. No, actually, the point was...
I knew it.
I have to come up with a point now, right?
He's going to filibuster till he has a point.
The point was that there was never any concern whatsoever on his part whether or not he filed the taxes because he knew that he's never been held accountable for anything, and he will not be held accountable for anything because they have the system absolutely stacked.
Right.
And
very, very, very few voters will be swayed by it.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know about that because it was something like 10% of voters, according to a poll published by the Washington Examiner, said had the Hunter Biden laptop story not been covered up, they wouldn't have voted for Joe.
I just think it's worth
So
pointing
I do
out.
think some people will care.
Yeah.
But that's actually very few, though. 10% may
It was
have
of
swung-
people who voted Democrat,
Right.
I believe.
I understand that.
It's like 7 to 10. I want to double check on that.
And it
but-
might be that might have made a difference in a couple of swing states. But at the end of the day, what we are saying is that 90% of Democrats would have shrugged their shoulders.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
And
we
they'll
know that.
shrug their shoulders as many times as possible.
And also,
Agreed. You just need to wake enough people up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think just cumulatively, we should look at Hunter Biden. We should talk about Navy, his daughter, who is also he's ignoring. Like, I think we should all look at everything Hunter Biden does and say, this is the child that Joe Biden raised.
Yeah,
And
well,
just maybe it's not enough to persuade every voter, but I think
But the real story, though, is notwithstanding the serious character flaws of Hunter Biden, and many great families have had seriously depraved children. And a great deal of wealth can have that effect on even the best of
Absolutely.
families, and especially when it's wealth generated by corruption.
yeah.
But the real story, going back to our theme, is this is what elites can get away with.
Yes, and it's what elites can get away with. And I'll also add this. It's not just that Hunter Biden was raised in an extremely wealthy family. He was raised in an extremely wealthy family, and his father is a coward and a phony.
his dad
That's a
also
fact.
probably wasn't around very much. I mean, if he worked for 40, 50 years in Congress, he's been in Congress since the 70s, right? That's a long time to be spending 28 days a month away from your family.
he's from Delaware. He took the train home every night.
Yeah, he took the train. Middle
Did he
class
say
Joe
that?
took the train
Yeah.
home every
Middle
night.
class?
Yeah, that's what he claimed.
Oh,
yeah.
that's good.
They
Then
called him
maybe he
middle
was-
class Joe, and he took the train home every night, and he fought corn
Maybe he
pops.
was-
How
He's
lame
a
is it
bad
to
dude,
give
and he ran
yourself
a bunch
a
of bad
nickname?
boys. He gave himself a nickname. He's like, oh, that's what they called me, man. They didn't mean it as a compliment, man. It's like, okay, well, let me tell you something, Joe. This is what happens to you, by the way, when Hunter is the smartest person who you know. Biden was in India alongside the Indian Prime Minister, and he raised his hand to his heart
He's
because
in Washington.
he was in. Oh, I'm so sorry. He was in Washington, but they were. You're absolutely correct. Yes, you have the presidential seal right there.
Points off as host
look
of
at this.
Shimcast.
Shh,
Tim would never make a
You're never
mistake.
coming back on this show. You're out.
I'll just wait for Tim to
I'm the
return.
new
I
host.
just know that Tim would just...
Tim would have lost his mind.
His beanie's
But
off.
Here's well, maybe Hunter's the smartest guy I
lost
know
his
at this
voice.
point. I've just completely crashed and burned here.
It's going great.
No.
Okay, deep
I
breath.
wanna-
Try
yeah.
again.
Whew. All right, so we're gonna start again, and we're gonna edit this. Okay, all right. No one's ever gonna see this happen.
do it in
All right,
post.
so this is what happens when Hunter Biden is the smartest person you know. Joe Biden was alongside the Indian Prime Minister. He raised his hand to his heart because he expected.
He's been a senator, not just a mere member of Congress, which is only a couple of clicks above being a milkman, okay?
It's below being a milkmen are useful. They bring us a product that we use. They're good people.
Yeah, good point.
Speaking of which, I just spilled water on this keyboard.
Flip it upside down. That's the
gosh,
best
that's
thing.
so
So angry. It's
But
okay.
the-
Did you ever see Tim in a million years?
Tim would have
spilling
never spilled
on
water.
his-
Can you believe that?
live on the show?
He actually hasn't.
Ian, can you
He actually
hit
hasn't.
that
No,
from
I
Serge?
got
You
it.
know
I
why
got it.
Tim
I got
lost his voice?
Look at
Is
this. L.
I think the
he was
thing is,
excited.
Seamus gets a big ego, and he thinks, I can do this show, Tim. You don't
Then
see
I
them
move my
after the
arm,
show
I
every
smack
night.
it.
He's like, you should have done this. You should have.
Oh, not only that, he
And
saw
Tim was
Jack
like,
last
It's
night.
worse than that. I
Ja-
got him
Jack-
sick. Actually, I coughed in his drink. I said, I'm going to be the host next time.
He sees.
Now
It
he's
was
just
my
spilling
actually, my
water.
Also
plan was to
comes in
spill
and
water
he's-
on the keyboard.
You know, he's a king. He comes in. He absolutely has the moves. Seamus is thinking, obviously anyone could do this.
I said it's child's play.
Turns out it's harder than he thinks.
No, I didn't.
I mean, I think we are there. I'm going to return to the point here because we can talk about endless number of Joe Biden gaffes. My personal favorite was when he was in Ireland and said, "I don't want to go home." That's a rough statement.
Did he say
from
I don't want to go home when he was in Ireland?
But I also think hating someone is not the way to make a better world. Like a lot of what got us here was Trump derangement. People that couldn't stand Trump, they'll vote for anything else. So if people hate Biden that much that they'll vote for anything else, could be even worse. It could be exponentially worse.
No, and that's why the reason that I say he's not a tyrant is, and before you had your continence prop over here, was that he's not a dictator. He's a crook, and he enjoys having power so that it can enrich himself. He's been a senator for a generation. Then he was vice president, which is a job where you get lots of quirks. Quirks?
Quirks is an interesting word for that.
Yeah, but it's completely the wrong
Perks.
You get lots of perks and queer perks. That's what I was thinking.
That's it.
It is Pride Month.
You get a lot.
But the point is, he's used to being the boss. He's used to being the man, and he's risen to seniority in the Senate. Therefore, he is impatient. He is short with people. He's not bright, so therefore he uses authority as a proxy for the ability to convince people. And if we all should take a look, everyone, before you go to bed tonight, look at a video of Joe Biden from the 70s or 80s. This was a very, very articulate man. Not brilliant and not well-spoken as such, but the point is if he's articulate, he's well-spoken. But he had the tools to do the job. And then he ran out of gas. But what he became was we have a word in Yiddish, a golem. He became a zombie, an effective zombie in whom, a new SD card could be placed every morning with that day's, where to stand. And he has all those, many years of authority. But
when do you think he ran out of gas? I'm just curious about the timeline.
During the Obama administration. I think you could see one man coming in and much less of a man coming out.
Made $29.1 million its opening weekend back in 1995, and it had a $30 million budget, okay? So accounting for inflation, Pixar's first film, when they were a totally unknown studio, which did not have hit after hit after hit and a well-proven brand, blew this current film absolutely out of the water. Elemental, compared to Toy Story's $30 million budget, had a $200 million budget, and not to belabor the point, made the exact same amount its opening weekend as Toy Story.
In face value numbers.
In face value numbers. I'm not talking about real income. I'm not talking about real revenue. I am not talking about inflation adjusted numbers. I am talking about the actual raw figures.
So they need to have 10 opening weekends just to break even on the production budget. Forget the marketing.
Yep. That's just the production budget. And so...
And money's not free anymore, by the way.
No, it is not.
So there's
Interest
cost of
rates are going
capital.
up.
I watch a lot of these videos about guys talking about what representation and equity and diversity have done to Disney and to Marvel, and what very few of the people are talking about is the cost of capital. It's not enough to break even. When you break even, you're saying that the 3 years that we spent nursing this $500 million on this project, we didn't lose it. Well, actually, you did lose it, because the interest on $500 million in the last 3 years is real money. I mean, for guys like you and me, it's real money. For you, not so much. But
yeah, no, not Ian. He'll be fine. But no,
at the beginning, we talked about Target and middle America not wanting to take their kids into a Target store because of the freaky things that they're selling. And now we're talking about middle America not wanting to take their kids to a movie theater because of the freaky things they're selling.
Yep.
And in the middle, we talked about how Americans don't give a shit. They'll just vote Democratic no matter what. And Democratic has completely embraced, the Democratic Party has embraced this. There's a disconnection here. The answer seems to me to be that general feel-good political allegiances and voting are hard to dislodge. And even though we can always find and do always find social media sharing of footage from footage. The old man said footage. Yeah, we developed it in the dark.
film.
Okay. The video of the, family-friendly drag show and you're wondering what the hell family, what parents are taking their kids. So
Yeah.
there are some, but by and large, at the end of the day, most normal Americans will even vote Democratic, will even believe the media and the implausible stories that they come up with about origins of COVID. When it comes to pushing this sexualization, even forget whether or not it has to do with homosexuality or transsexuality or any of that stuff. Sexualization of children. People still have, I think, normal people, and that's still the majority, an inherent revulsion. Why does my kid have to be involved with this at all?
Agreed. I think that's the right way of putting it. It's a revulsion. A person doesn't have to go through like an intellectual rationalization for why they're not taking their kid to see that. They just go, that's disgusting. I don't want to show that to my kid.
Yeah.
They feel it in their gut and they say, this isn't for our family, and they do something else. They don't need to explain it to themselves. And I think that's the hard thing about modern culture. For a lot of parents, they're being pressed to say, but why wouldn't you do this? Why won't you do that?
Right, and they don't have a religious doctrine to fall back on because they don't go to church anymore and they don't observe, the tenets of their religion. And yet their souls are screaming within them
Amen.
that there is right and wrong in this world, that there is,
Certainly.
call it natural law, call it God's, but there is morality, that there are things that matter. There are values that are not malleable, and people are embarrassed to be associated with a religious rationale for having those feelings because what could be less fashionable?
And I think this is why it's so important to the alphabet people to go after children, because it is true, as you said, this is written on man's heart. He understands this. There are certain things that are wrong.
And it doesn't have to even be perversity. As I said, most normal young children are uncomfortable with outward displays of what we might call romantic affection. They don't really want to see mommy and daddy kissing. A kiss is okay. They don't want to see you making out with your spouse. They do not want any part of that.
As they shouldn't, like an adult wouldn't. But if you wanted to create a world where like adults were just making out in front of each other and in front of kids and being weird,
then you'd go to San Francisco.
You'd go to San Francisco. No, but that's what these groomers do. They try to expose children to it as early as possible,
so it becomes normal to them.
It becomes normal to them. Exactly.
I think it's also important to mention that a lot of the people that are performing in drag and et cetera, and in these environments. I mean, I was a DJ for years, and I've been around a lot of the gay community. Say what you will about it, but they don't feel comfortable doing this. They don't want children to be around like that, and a lot of them are in the situation where they're essentially being forced by people that are.
Well, I represent a couple of organizations. One is Gays Against Groomers.
Yes. Okay. Great people.
And these are real homos. In other words, these are people who they're activists.
Certainly are. Yes,
it is a big part of their identity. There's like an entire different conversation of, does tolerance of homosexuality require me to have to hear about your homosexual interests all the time? Separate and apart from that, what my clients are saying is, they're killing our community.
Yes.
They're killing the reputation and the image we had. And by the way, there's a parallel to what's happened with race relations in this country, because most of us, until Barack Obama was elected, but especially after Barack Obama was elected, thought we did it.
On race relations, yeah.
We have turned that corner. We can elect, and by the way, many, many, many people voted for him to demonstrate to themselves
exactly
that
I'm not racist.
That they're not racist.
I voted for a black president.
And what happened is the door was opened to a radicalization, not necessarily because of Obama himself, I don't think so, but because of people around him. I actually don't have that sort of really intense hatred of Obama that a lot of people do.
You should probably talk to someone. I mean, you should get that checked out. Not hatred, strong dislike. I strongly dislike him. I won't say
because hate is
bad.
Good
yeah, but
a
strong dislike. But continue.
No, but the point is the people thought that we had, we sort of had the sexual revolution, and a lot of moral choices were unbound and traditional. And we were not necessarily all of us that comfortable, especially those of us who are traditional religionists. Fine. You go and ruin your own society. We're going to just hunker down. It's inescapable now. There's nowhere they won't let you. And by the way,
and that's always how it trends, by the way. They're never okay doing their perverse thing and then leaving other people alone to live a traditional and moral lifestyle.
Right, there's never a limiting principle.
Nope.
Yeah. And there can't be. Because when their entire argument for recognition and acceptance and tolerance is premised on marginalization per se is an evil, that means that there is no margin in which you can leave the most perverse behavior. And there we are.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and this is always how it goes. I mentioned this on the show a very long time ago when I first started doing it, when this conversation came up. But this is why I think Henry VIII and St. Thomas More are such an important case study, because there was nothing St. Thomas More could really do to stop Henry VIII from discarding with his wife and then taking a new woman. It was just the fact that he knew that Sir Thomas More disapproved of what he was doing sexually.
So you think, Ron, just to understand maybe what you're saying, is that like this move towards an openly sexual society or a repressively sexual society is like, it's a trend. It's never static. So like this whole like the gay rights movement, the liberation of gay marriage, it was always inevitably tending towards complete open sexual transparency towards children. And the only other option is to repress it.
It's a very you have asked the right question and you've identified the dilemma, because as a First Amendment lawyer, I'll make it first clear that the First Amendment does not protect obscenity, but the United States Supreme Court has essentially defined obscenity out of existence and made it pretty much a consent issue, which has nothing to do with obscenity whatsoever. We live in a society now where the only criterion had been, until just about 10 minutes ago, had been consent. And we're now broaching that as well, because there's never a limiting principle. So talking about the sexualization of children, and literally the sexualization and sexuality involving children, the mere fact that people have the audacity to speak in public discourse about sexualizing children, about involving children with sex, is a complete abnegation of the concept that children are deemed morally incapable of giving consent.
Yeah.
But we can't maintain that position, because we're also taking the position, pretty much you and me, not that children can give their consent to having their genitals mutilated and to taking drugs that will supposedly change their sex. There's no limiting principle.
Yeah.
There is no way. Once you say that, and this is meant to be a stick in the eye to God.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's not merely, by the way, if they had God. No. They are well aware of God. Like you said, there's a resonance in the universe that the soul picks up on. This is what Abraham was the first person to do. He says, this bowing down to rocks and trees, wrong. There's a creator. There's meaning in this universe. There's right and wrong. These people know it, and they feel it, and they hate it. They resent it, and it is a matter of not, there used to be something called agnosticism. I don't know. Most agnostics today call themselves atheists because it makes them feel that they have a position, usually one that they can't actually intellectually defend, because they have no familiarity whatsoever with classic religious thinking, or any thinking, usually. But that's what it's about. It really is a fight against God, as is the entire transsexuality and transhuman movement.
I could not agree more. I think we're going to have a fantastic after show segment talking about all of this stuff. If you guys want to see that, go over to timcast.com and become a member. But for now, Grofty says, Ian, you are the same year birth as me. I have the Challenger mission scarred in me. I remember. Maybe we can learn from the Starship and this sub test.
I think we are learning from these things, at least a little bit, about how they'll tell you that they died peacefully.
Do you think it's worth not going?
Not going where?
Like on any explorations?
I personally will never, unless I have to get there, I will never take that kind of risk. I can say I have a fantasy about like swimming the Bimini Road off Southeast Asia because ancient history.
Yeah, recreational risk taking on this scale is preposterous.
I'm not that kind of guy.
It is utterly morally unjustifiable to expose yourself, much less a family member, who what I understand may not have been all that eager to go.
Oh no!
To this kind of literal mortal risk for thrills. There's plenty of thrilling stuff to do on the surface, or on a nice sightseeing boat, or even you want to dive. I mean, but to this of course, people didn't really appreciate the level of risk. Although, I don't know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The sugar.
Common Sense Fishing says, did you guys forget they found the Titanic by luck while on a top secret mission to find a nuclear sub with nukes on board? It's near the Titanic site. I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either.
Oh, I
thought they were looking for that diamond that Rose had. No? Is that
I've never seen that movie. I know it's popular.
Good for you.
Wow.
Grizzlock says, it's not that 90% don't care. It's that 75% don't even know what the heck is going on to begin with. Censorship mine. He didn't say heck.
Amen.
Oh, nice work.
Yeah. I think there's truth in that. I think
it's more like 68%, really. And that there's a 12%, I think that's right. It is astonishing how much, well, we heard for last night, in the third hour, about how so many people have no idea what's going on. People, especially the worst thing a person could do is rely on mainstream media.
Yep.
It's worse than not even reading, because it makes you dumber.
Yeah. The Moffinator says, tired of Drew under that shopping pressure of daily life? Do you feel like you don't know, Jack? Do you got hairy legs? Talk to your bad calf care provider to see if Nexel resting is right for you. Beautiful super chat.
I queued that up on purpose. I was just hoping you'd read it like that.
Of course. Come on.
Good.
I'm not going to pass that up. Come on, man.
Can you do a Stewie though, like Jack does? I mean,
the Brian, can you write yourself a book there? Very brilliant. So we're coming up on wrap-up time. It's been really awesome having you with us here, Ron. I want to thank you for coming on to the show, and also give you an opportunity to plug whatever it is you want to plug, my friend.
I'm Ron Coleman. You can find me if you just Google Ron Coleman lawyer. You've got to use the word lawyer. You're going to get the bodybuilder. You'll look for a while, and then you'll figure out it's not the same person as me.
Who can bench more?
Well, I bench. Oh, it's just a Yiddish joke. It's not even worth it. Who can bench more? Big Ron Coleman actually can barely move his arms right now. I think he's not a healthy man.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But be that as it may, I'm on primarily on Twitter at Ron Coleman. Spell it with an E, Coleman. And when you go there, you'll find all the stuff. Of course, not everyone follows me who ought to follow me on Twitter, but they eventually come around. And that's all you really need to know. I have a podcast. It's called Culmination. The joke is culmination, finishing, finalization, not culmination, but I'm stuck. Everyone says culmination, which would be really lame.
Those are your fans, right? The Coleman Nation?
My fan.
A nation of one.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for Timcast.com.
I'm Ian Crossland. Have a great night, guys. You can follow me at iancrossland.net or at Ian Crossland, anywhere on social media, and I will be happy to chat from time to time when I see you, and I'll see you
on the after show, which will be very soon here. My name is Serge.com. It's been fun. It's been an interesting ride, that's for sure. It sure feels like we will have an interesting after show as well. Again, absolutely. I say it again, it will be interesting. It'll be on Timcast.com for those members who have been members with it for 6 months, and anyone over $25 membership. I think you are all able to call in even. Join us there. Again, Serge.com on Twitter. Let's argue. I appreciate it.
Despite the uncanny resemblance, I am not Tim Pool. My name is Seamus Coughlin. I have a YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes today. And thank you all for hanging out tonight.